What does a 35% market decline actually look like? All right, because I do think a 35% decline is what you should be anticipating, 100%. When, where, or how, I don't know. Sooner rather than later, for sure. Soon mean this year, I have no clue. No clue. But I think a 35% decline is actually, while exceptional, yeah. It still is not the greatest we've ever had, not by any stretch. I think it's in the cards. We've had 13 straight years of massive run. 13 or 12, yeah, more than 10. And as such, you're going to give some up at some point. All right, so let's take a look. We're going to look at Portfolio Visualizer. I got 3 different portfolios: Vanguard Total Stock, Vanguard Wellington, and Vanguard Wellesley. All right, so as you remember, Total Stock is 100% stocks. Wellington is roughly 65 to 70 stocks. 35 to 30 to 35 bonds. Wellesley is about 40% stocks and 60% bonds. All right, we're going to start in 2009. March 9th of 2009 was when the market bottomed out. And we can attribute that to the end of mark-to-market accounting. Thank you, Barney Frank. Anyway, so mark-to-market accounting went away, and all of a sudden liquidity was opened up. All right, so at the end of 2021 is where we're going to start or end our analysis. We put $100,000 in each, and we're going to say, what did the markets look like? All right, so we're going to say, oh my lands, look at this. And if we go to log, shouldn't be much different here, I would think. Yeah. So I just want to point out the difference in log and non-log. And I think is non-log arithmetic. I think it is, or algebraic. I can't remember. Anyway, so 100,000, 200,000, the same size as 200,000 to 400,000. It's the same in terms of, because it's the same percentages. I hope that makes sense. So 100,000 to 200,000 is a hell of a lot bigger of a jump than 200,000 to 300,000, even though they're both only 100, even though they're both 100% gains each. So 100,000 to 200,000, 100% increase. 200,000 to 400,000 is a 100% increase. 400,000 to 800,000 is a 100% increase. Hope that makes sense. So if you go to non-log, it's going to look at that, it looks even better. That doesn't matter. We want to do log. Anyway, it's just something, it's a pet peeve of mine. People are like, oh my goodness, 100,000 to 200,000 is not the same as 200 to 300,000, which is not the same as 3 to 400,000. All right, so let's go to log. All right, and I'm not going to adjust this for inflation. All right, so at the end of the day, our 100,000, the VTI is 691,000 now. 100,000 in Wellington is 413. 100,000 in Wellesley is roughly 300,000. All right, so we're going to say 7, 4, and 3, if that makes sense. All right, take our trusty calculator, and we say, okay, so I started, and again, this is with no additions. We just started with $100,000 in 2009. And now we're sitting on $691,000, which means we average 16% a year rate of return. Here we average more than half of that, and yet we have less than half. Isn't that interesting? So Wellesley averaged 8.65, which is more than half of the 16% return of the total stock index, but Wellesley only tripled in money, whereas the VTI, I don't even know what 7 times is. Isn't that interesting? So it didn't even give us more than half of what the total stock market index did. Interesting, huh? So 8.65 is more than half of 16%, and yet we're not even close to more than half of the 795, if that makes sense. But 700,000, if that makes sense. They're pretty interesting, I think. All right, so let's check it out. All right, so we have 691,000. If we got a 35% decline, we'd be down to 449. All right, so 449 is our present, that'll be say our future value, 449. So we got a 35% decline is 449. All right, so we're going to do it. That's our future value. 100,000 is what we started with. We didn't make any payments. We're going to say from 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's 14 years. Because at the end of 14 years, if we had a 35% decline, we'd have, what do we say? I forgot what the present value was. 400 something. So we're going to say 14 is our end. Compute. That still means we averaged 11.3%. So even with a 35% decline, we still averaged 11% a year for 14 flipping years, man. Crazy. Oops. Oops. Yeah, 449, 450. So even with a 35% decline, you're still only down at 450. If you said at the end of 2000 or the beginning of 2009, out of $100,000, it'd be worth $450,000 in 14 years. You say, yeah, I'll take that. 11% a year. And that's, by the way, that's historic averages, which is why I think we're going to have a pretty significant sell-off at some point here. And then nuts. It's nuts. That's for 13, 14 years. Crazy. All right, so I'm just curious why I'm just yapping. Let's go to 2000. What is it worth at the end of, all right, so 2000 is worth 661. All right, so there you go. 2000 is worth 661. All right, so this is my only concern. Concern is too strong a word. So 661 minus 35% equals 429. All right, so here, 429 is our future value, 100,000 is our present value. Zero payments, we have 20 to 2022. That's 23 years. That means we only average 6.54. So that's interesting. If we had a 35% decline, that would mean we only average 6.54 for these 23 years. That's not huge. I don't know. That's where I start wondering: are we real? Is a 35% decline? I mean, when you think about it, you're like 35% over the last 13 years makes sense, but 35% when you factor in the previous 9 years, that's not great. I mean, that's not. I don't know. That means 6.5% rate of return over those 23 years. That's probably one of the worst 23-year records we ever had. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm cautious though. I'm still going to err on the side of I think of a 35% decline is more likely than not. But you look at both sides, you say maybe not. All right. Anyway, either way, we've averaged 9.91 for the last 22 years. That's good. I'll take it. That means a doubling of your money every 7.2 years. But it's not. Again, it's not freaking exceptional relative to historic norms. It's just not. So anyway, that would lead something to be investigated about your own thinking. But if you go back to the 80s and 90s, there's always a couple different ways to skin this cat. All right, let's go back to Wellington though. So you can see Wellington is at 534, Wellesley is at 398. So Wellington has averaged 8.74 for the last 22 years, Wellesley 7.15. Let's go back to Wellington now. We're going to go 2029. Or 2009. In Wellington, if we had a 35% decline, 413 minus 35% would be worth 268. All right, so 268 is our future value. 100,000 is our present value. No payments. We have 14 years. That means we still average 7.3%, man. Even after a 35% decline. Again, if someone would have said to me at the beginning of 2009, you have $100,000 in Wellington, and you'll have 268,000 14 years from now. Well, you'll take that, say that's with a 35% decline, and say, yeah, that's pretty good. And then but remember, Wellington's never had a 35% decline ever, not even close. The worst it's ever had was 37% from point A in October 2007 to point B March 9th of 2009. That's it. The worst it's ever had is 22%. So Wellesley, on the other hand, if we look at, look, anything could happen, but Wellesley and Wellington have never had that. Wellesley's worst year is 9.9%. So let's just go to his worst year. So actually, let's do this. Let's do Wellington's worst year, 22%. So 413 is our minus 22%. That's 322. We'll put that as our future value. 100,000 is our present value. 14 and compute. Oops, what happened? Zero payment. 8.71. 8.71. You're like, I'll take that. All right, so now let's go to Wellesley Fund, which is 300,000 minus, we'll just say 10%. That puts us at 270. 270 is future value. 100,000 is zero payment. Compute. That's 7.35. If a 35% decline in stocks, that's 37% in 2008. 22% for Wellington in 2008 and 10% for Wellesley in 2008. I don't. So anyway, the point being here is that's why I took gains off the table and put into Wellington from my VTV, because it's like, man, Worst case scenario is Wellington Fund gives me 22% or 25%. That's a hell of a lot better than a 37% if I'm about ready to retire. And that's why I look at it. But is that gonna sink the ship? No. I mean, it could, but it seems to me that probably won't. So it's not bankrupt. 35% decline isn't bankruptcy, man. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Don't worry too much. All right, we'll see you.